This is VSiN, the sports betting network. This is the VSiN Morning Line on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Good morning, happy Friday, and welcome into the VSiN Morning Line. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi and Harrison Sanford. A wild night of sports last night. Thursday Night Football finally delivers, and the Mets. That was a fantastic series win for them. We're going to get into it just minutes, but first, a look ahead into who's coming up on the show today. Thomas Gable at 7:45 Eastern with bookmaker insights for the weekend. Then at 8:30 Eastern, Ian Hartitz with his Week 5 fantasy preview with Harrison. And then at 9 Eastern, Tim Murray joining us in his regular spot for his best bets for college football Week 6. And coming up in this hour, we are recapping the Bucs Falcons action on Thursday night, giving you a little MLB playoff update, taking a look at the top NFL and college football games of the week, and then once again, getting those bookmaker insights from Thomas Gable. So let's start with a thriller in Thursday Night Football. It looked like the Falcons were dead in the water with 1:52 left in the game. Kirk Cousins forces a pass into double coverage. Levante David picks it off. The Falcons defense gets a stop. Kirko drives the field. Younghoe Koo, after a miss and a block kick, delivers the game-tying field goal. Then Kaderil Hodge, replacing the injured Drake London, scores the walk-off touchdown in overtime. Falcons go on to win 36-30, covering as a 2.5-point favorite. It sails over the number of 43.5. Michael, your reaction to a really fun Thursday night?
Yeah, it was really a fun Thursday night game, but I don't know. You know, we talk about the fourth quarter, or I talk about the fourth quarter all the time, and this is a game that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had two opportunities in the fourth quarter to win the game and should have won the game. And they blew both of those opportunities with the Irving fumble, which was deadly. They were able to overcome that with the interception. And all they have to do is not go backwards, right? They have the ball at the Falcon 28. If they just quarterback sneak it 3 plays in a row and they get 2 yards, they're going to kick a field goal to go up 6. Now, I know the analytical community will say that's not very good, but they would have gone up 6 without any much time left on the clock, and they would have had to drive down to score a touchdown, and the game would not have gone to overtime. But look, the Falcons made the plays. They're very fortunate. I think Elliott, before we started the show, hit the nail on the head. They're very much like the Vikings of 2 years ago, where they've got lucky at the end of these games. Their defense really can't stop anybody. I mean, in this game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 51 plays. They averaged .06 per point per play. And they moved the ball up and down the field until the final 2 drives, Harrison. So your Falcon playoff streak is alive. You're going to be pounding your chest today, but I wouldn't get too carried away because this team isn't going to be able to keep this luck going.
Well, that might be true, but as it presently stands, the Falcons are sitting pretty good. 2-0 now in the division, and Kirk Cousins, after that Week 1 shaky performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers, has shown week by week improvement, and as of right now, he's led this team to 3 game-winning drives, not straight. He did it back-to-back because he did it against the Saints last week. I think that has to be a sign of encouragement. This team is definitely showing some improvement. You saw them able to get the ball to Kyle Pitts last night, somebody who had 0 receptions. So that wasn't good last week, but they showed an improvement there. I think it's overall a positive sign for this team. It seems as if first-year play caller Zach Robinson is getting more comfortable with what he wants to do with Cousins. And, yeah, Michael's right, Grace. They have some holes, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But, hey, they made plays. Look at Jesse Bates last night, forcing that fumble from Bucky Irvin. I think they're good enough to get away with winning the division and being in the playoffs. Now, what they do from there, I don't know. But I got a ticket on them making the playoffs. And that, as of last night, it feels pretty good.
Yeah, with less than 2 minutes to go in that game, Falcons had a 5% chance of winning the game, so another improbable win for them. But Kaderil Hodge, after the game, was just as shell-shocked as the rest of us. He reached almost 20 miles an hour on that 45-yard walk-off touchdown. Let's take a listen to him.
I can't make this up. It still, to me, feels like a movie right now. I checked in one play and go to the crib. Me? Man, I don't know what to say. Like I said, when I scored, I crossed the line. I kind of blacked out, and I seen the guys coming, and I came back. And like I said, you can't make this up. It's like a movie to me.
Yeah, I think there's no question the kid made an incredible play, broke a bunch of tackles. I mean, it was the 81st play of the game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, and so they were tired and worn down. I mean, this was similar to the game they played against Detroit where they couldn't really get the stops they needed, but they kept Detroit out of the end zone. They did a good job of keeping the Falcons out of the end zone. They did a horrible job on 3rd and long in this game. I think they clearly missed Winfield. Their pass rush looked exhausted to me. So, it's a great win for Atlanta. But to me, having been in the league, it's hard to keep winning games like this. It's hard to be this margin being so small. I mean, what was the percentage of winning the Eagle game was 1%. And I think this game was 5%. Look, the Falcons won, credit them, but I think it shows you their defense is not very good, and they're going to struggle to beat any team in the National Football League in the way they play defense. Baker Mayfield had command of the game up until the last 2 drives, Harrison.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Falcons respond to this big-time win in this primetime slot. They get the Panthers next week. One would assume that could be a win. They do get a tough matchup against the Seahawks, and then they travel to Tampa Bay after that. So a 3-game stretch here that can continue to be pivotal for the Atlanta Falcons. But I will say this from a betting standpoint, Grace. I love getting confirmation on team profiles. Last night, Kirk Cousins, 58 passing attempts, and it's been believed that Todd Bowles' team is a pass funnel defense. You're going to get quarterbacks who are going to try and air it out. Whether they're successful and have completions, that's another story. But once again, a team and a quarterback going through the air against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. And so that's something in the betting markets we could continue to target, whether it be pass completions, passing yards, passing attempts. This is a pass funnel defense, so got to take advantage of it, particularly when Vita Vea is in the lineup, who might discourage running attempts from the opposing team.
Right, and I think it's time we change the narrative about Kirk Cousins being unclutch in primetime, right? Over time, he has that really awful record in primetime games, but it's actually interesting when you break it down between games when he's an underdog versus a favorite. He's 4-12 straight up since 2016 as an underdog, but as a favorite in primetime, he's 8-3 straight up. And now he's had 15 game-winning drives since 2017. That's 4 more than anyone else. So Kirko turning things around, Harrison.
Yeah, no, he definitely did. And I was curious to get Michael's opinion on this, too, because he could have been unclutch. You had that moment in the fourth quarter. They're driving down the field. They could have elected to throw the ball to the outside and have their wide receiver go out of bounds. I know Dak Prescott must be sick looking at how Kirk Cousins was able to go down the field and spike the ball with 1 second left. I'm curious to get Michael's opinion on that risk that they took there in that moment. Obviously, it panned out, but I would assume most coaches would have aimed to throw to the sidelines there and not run the risk of the clock running out.
Well, you're playing at home, so you got the home clock operator, which always helps you there. It gives you that extra tip. I think, to me, we would not be having this conversation, if Bates doesn't strip the ball and if the Bucs don't go backwards. I mean, the interception to Devontae David, actually what the kid should have done is just drop the ball. He should have let it hit his chest and bounce out. It was 4th down. And he forced the ball in there, and, of course, he catches it, and now they have worse field position, and then they go backwards. They get the holding call, which is a killer because it stops the clock. It allows Atlanta to have a timeout. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Grace, but the reality of it is that it was really timely and lucky. And, it's better to be lucky than good, I guess. I think that's the ultimate story. I think if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan or if you're a Tampa Bay Buck, and we're going to see it at the end of October. I think they play October 27th. You're sitting there saying, man, we just gave a game away. We just literally, and the Saints are saying the same thing. So to me, I think this is all going to come down to, the South is going to come down to who can beat Carolina twice. That to me is going to be the key. Next week, Atlanta goes to Carolina. Carolina is going to control the South because they're good enough to beat one of these teams. They beat Atlanta there last year. They're going to beat one of these teams either home or away. And if you lose to Carolina, it's going to be hard to come back. I think New Orleans beats Atlanta at home. I think New Orleans beats Tampa. I mean, Tampa beats Atlanta at home. So there's going to be splits there. It looks good now. But to me, the key to the South is Carolina.
Yeah, in a competitive division, lucky wins like this help out a lot. Speaking of luck, I wouldn't call it that for Pete Alonso, the polar bear pulling through in the 9th inning. A go-ahead 3-run shot to right center puts the Mets back out in front. They go on to win 4-2 in a game with a wild ending. It had been scoreless going into the 7th. Let's take a listen to the polar bear.
Pete, simple question. What does this feel like right now? It's unreal. Unreal. I'm just so happy. It was such a great series. I'm just so happy I got to come through for the boys right there. I mean, it's such a great effort to get to this spot all year. And, man, this is such a special group of guys. We were in it to the end. Didn't give away any pitches or any outs. I'm just so excited for this group. I mean, we've come such a long way. I'm just so happy to deliver for the boys.
So that was the game I was watching last night, guys. Of course, following Thursday Night Football on my phone. But I love a pitcher's duel. A pitcher's duel, Michael. That's the type of game you would love because you love ground and pound football. And that's what it was going into the 7th inning here. I was actually surprised. They did not have a short hook on these starting pitchers. Jose Quintana went 6 innings. Tobias Myers went 5 until he well, actually, it was, let's see. Oh, yeah, it was Jose Budo who gave up the 2 runs to Jake Bauers pinch hitting in the 7th, and then Sal Frelick followed it up with back-to-back home runs. The Brewers' home crowd was going nuts, leading 2-0 after 7. But then, of course, Pete Alonso shuts everything down. And now we get a regional and divisional rivalry in the NLDS. The Mets facing the Phillies as a plus 158 underdog. The Phillies, a 188 series favorite. Really exciting stuff. I'm sure the MLB will love the ratings on that one. But coming up next, with the news of Devontae Adams hitting the market, we thought it'd be fun to ask, who is still worthy of wide receiver 1 money? And who else is a true wide receiver? Previewing those games next.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big. We go all night. And here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Coming up Friday on Follow the Money, we'll talk NFL picks and previews with Adam Chernoff, Mike Somich also with a ton of picks, and Luke from Prop Swap. All the Tiger tickets and people wanting to sell. Follow the Money weekdays 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line. We've been discussing the Davante Adams trade request all week. So now with him hitting the market, we thought it'd be interesting to ask, is he still worthy of wide receiver one money? And who else is worthy of wide receiver one money? Who else is a true wide receiver one? So, Michael, I'll give you the floor. What do you think?
Well, there's 50 wide receiver ones if you just listen to the media talk all the time. You know, if you just Drake London's the number one if you listen to the media. Kyle Pitts after last night would be a number one, although every play he gets open on is against zone. I mean, that's a high school play. You can get open against zone. It's, you know, number one receivers are guys that the coach are worried about on Tuesday in the game plan meeting. Number one receivers are worried about, you know, what's going to happen on third down? How do we keep the ball out of his hands? Can we cover this guy? Do we have to double this guy? You know, Stephon Diggs, everybody thinks he's a number one receiver. Do you know a number one receiver that averages 9.6 yards a catch? I don't know one. Is he a good receiver? Yeah. But we just automatically have this term because it makes everybody seem like they know something about football, that this guy's a number one receiver, which is very few and far between. There's a lot of really good receivers. A.J. Brown's the number one receiver, right? Tyreek Hill is the number one receiver. J.J. Jefferson is the number one receiver. But in this game in Buffalo, you know, I'll tell you this, Nico Collins is moving into that category to be a number one receiver, not Stephon Diggs, and I think that's the challenge. You got to take this guy out of the game. He averages over 15 yards a catch. He gets open against man coverage. He's really good at catching the ball inside. You've got a game plan. Anytime you have to game plan around a receiver, and, you know, what mostly happens all the time is no one really understands coverages. You saw it last night on TV, so they try to explain the coverage to you when it's really completely wrong. And that's where people get misconstrued on who is the number one receiver. Everybody gets open versus zone. Very few people get open versus double teams, Harrison.
Yeah, I want to get further into this game and looking at that Bills secondary for sure. But I'm curious, as somebody who's worked in the front office, Michael, as it pertains to contract negotiations and roster structuring, how do you manage a wide receiver who expects wide receiver one money? How do you manage an agent who's going to push for his wide receiver to get wide receiver money when that agent is also managing other free agents or other NFL players that you're going to want on your roster? How do you balance the two if you know, as a talent evaluator, I should not be paying X player X amount of money because he truly doesn't deserve it for his talent that he's offering on the field?
Well, I believe this, and I've said this on this show many, many times. The worst decision you can make is overpay good players. You'd never make a bad decision overpaying a great player. You couldn't overpay Josh Allen. You couldn't overpay Tyreek Hill. He's going to come in and he's going to determine. Now, his effort's disastrous. I mean, do you see him go after the ball on the sideline on the lateral? That's disappointing. But to me, a guy that changes field position, a guy that ultimately, Randy Moss, who changes the game, you can't overpay those guys. Where you get in trouble is when you overpay Christian Kirk. Where you get in trouble is when you overpay good receivers. I mean, last night we saw Mike Evans. He's not paid like a number one receiver. He's down at $23 million a year, 24. I mean, that's a good contract for Mike Evans. He took a really good deal. He's an older player, but he's still a really effective player. He's a better player than Davante Adams, who wants more money. Mike Evans gets open. You can't really cover Mike Evans one-on-one. He's not in a crowd. I mean, he can separate at the top of the route, where Davante has struggled in that area. So to me, you know, if I'm the Raiders and Davante wants more money, and I'm sitting there saying, well, Mike Evans just got a new contract and he only took $24 million. You're already making more than that. Like, how are you better than him? You got to have hard conversations. But if you want to be liked, if you want everybody to praise you and go to the media and say what a great GM, then you're just going to give out money. It's like Danny O from ESPN. He can't wait to pay everybody, Harrison.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, but don't you, I'm sure Grace can resonate with this too, don't you have to also grease that relationship with the agent? Don't you always, like, I imagine there has to be, and sometimes you have to concede to the overpay because that agent is representing the next quarterback in the draft that you want, the next shutdown corner in the draft that you want, the next pass rusher.
Every negotiation's separate. Like, that agent is never going to do you any favor. Once you fall in that trap, you're really screwed. If you think an agent's going to do you a favor down the road because you do a favor on a contract, you got no chance. You're going to get screwed completely. You got everyone's an individual one, and you have no idea what the next one's going to be. And, oh, I'll take care of you on the next deal. No, you won't, because the next deal, if somebody else offers you more money, you're going to take it. And I respect that. I understand that. I'm not looking for a discount for you because you have a staple of players. What I'm looking for is to get the right number. See, every time I give away $5 million, I mean, let's just take Saquon Barkley for an example. They go ahead and they overpay nobody said a word about this on the show. They overpay Illuminor by $1 million, and then they bring in Van Roten. They pay him $2 million. That $3 million could have gone to Saquon Barkley, and they would have kept him. But nobody talks about the overpayments. They just talk about, well, we didn't sign him. That's the reality, Harrison. And so I think, to me, Grace, you got to be very disciplined in it. Now, there's sometimes you're definitely going to overpay some guys. It's going to be on that threshold. You really don't want to go there, but you do. But you feel like you have to just to get it done. It's easier to pay a little bit. But when you overpay by a lot, that's when you get in trouble.
All right, well, let's break down some of these games with a clear wide receiver one. And we'll start with the Bills and Texans, since you guys both alluded to that one. It's the first time Stephon Diggs is facing his former team since requesting a trade. Has a little bit of a bad rep in this league. Here's C.J. Stroud on his new wide receiver.
I think he got a bad rap, just by the media and like by people. But man, he's not been nothing but just amazing to this team and to his teammates. He's helped me out a ton, and as you can see, we're clicking more and more every game. So, I'm very happy for him, and I'm glad that he's finally having fun playing the game and doing what he loves to do, because he loves football a lot. So, just really, really happy to be a part of his journey, and like just being around him has been real awesome.
Well, I mean, look, he was a fifth-round pick because of what happened at the University of Maryland. I mean, he wasn't an easy guy to get along with at Maryland. He was talented as hell, and he didn't go into the fifth round. And then he had trouble in Minnesota, and he had a contract. And then he goes to Buffalo, and he became a problem. And so I'm happy to see that he's happy there. He feels like he's back home, and maybe he's found internal peace, and he's wonderful. But to me, I don't know if you could just say he's not been a problem. He's been a problem everywhere he's been going back to college in terms of his demeanor, which is completely understandable and acceptable as a player, because receivers want to get the football. That's part of what they do. His impact on this game, I think it remains to be seen, because I think if Tank Dell's out there, Dalton Schultz has taken the biggest hit with him coming back. Dalton Schultz has only had 16 targets in 4 games, which is a real issue. He's been one of their more reliable pass catchers along with Nico Collins. So for me, Grace, I think, to me, Diggs is a good player, but when you average under 10 yards a catch and you're getting paid $20 million a year, you're probably not fulfilling a contract.
Let's keep moving along with these games. By the way, the Bills-Texans line has been flipping back and forth all week. The Bills back to being a 1-point road favorite after some money coming in on them last night. Moving ahead to the Cowboys-Steelers, where Pittsburgh is a 2.5-point home favorite. CeeDee Lamb would be wide receiver one in this game. How do you feel he and Dak Prescott have lived up to their new contracts?
Well, I mean, look, they're both really good players, and they deserve what they got. I think that you can argue back and forth. Dak hasn't won a playoff game, and that's fair. But I think the supporting cast defensively, this is a tough matchup here, because the strength of the Cowboys is they're throwing the football. They can't run it. And if you go into Pittsburgh and think you're going to throw it 50 times like Kirk Cousins did last night, you're going to get sacked. You're going to lose. And I think, to me, this part of this game is, can you keep the ball enough to keep Pittsburgh from dominating it? Because Pittsburgh will run the football effectively. They'll have runs for Justin Fields. They'll coach this game really well. They'll coach it to be a close game in the fourth quarter. And then Dak Prescott's got to throw it, and you've got a rookie left tackle in Guyton. You've got Terrence Steele over at right tackle that struggles. So I think these receivers will make plays. There's no question. But the concern you have is going into Pittsburgh, you can't turn this ball over. And if you throw it 50 times, you will.
Okay, the Jets and Vikings playing in London with Minnesota, a 2.5-point favorite. Justin Jefferson feels like one of the true wide receiver ones in the NFL. You think he's worth the deal? And how has he helped the Vikings offense with Sam Darnold?
Well, I think he's definitely worth the deal because he draws double coverage, and I think this will be a matchup. It'll be interesting to see if they put Sauce Gardner on him and try to go 1-against-1. I would double him and go 1-against-2. I would take Gardner and put him on the number 2 receiver and try to take him out and make it very difficult for Sam Darnold to find somebody. So, I think, look, Gardner's a really good cover corner. The Jets have played more man than in the past. I think the one underlying factor in this game is Minnesota's offensive line, which does a really good job in pass protection. If they neutralize this Jets team in terms of rushing the passer, Darnold has time to throw. He'll be able to make plays even if Jefferson's double covered, Grace.
All right, we'll get into more NFL games later on in the show. But coming up next, we go to the college ranks where football brings family together. Or does it? Eli Drinkwitz causing some drama before this Mizzou-Texas A&M game. We'll get into that and the biggest college games of the weekend. You're listening to the VSiN Morning Line.
The only thing better than football is the excitement of all the contests. Catch the Circa Friday Football Invitational at 9 p.m. Eastern with picks from some of the sharpest bettors around the country. Then on Saturdays at 9, watch the Football Contest Show, where our expert hosts and guests go through the consensus choices for some of the biggest betting contests in the world. The fun doesn't stop there. Visit VSiN.com for the full lineup and join us on the Sports Betting Network.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Happy Friday, everybody. Good morning and welcome into the VSiN Morning Line. Harrison Sanford, Michael Lombardi, and Grace Remington joining you as we close out the week and look ahead to a weekend of football. And that also includes the college football slate. Now, guys, this weekend built a little bit differently than last weekend. Obviously, last weekend had Alabama taking on Georgia, which captured everybody's attention. This weekend, a little bit light in terms of top 25 matchups. We only have one, in fact, between Missouri and Texas A&M. We'll talk about that game in just a moment. But, Michael, I imagine this weekend gives you a little bit more freedom, or at least this Saturday gives you a little bit more freedom than what you had last week when you were at the big game.
Well, all these games matter, so it is fun. Oregon plays, so I got to watch that game. At least they play at night. My son coaches at Oregon, so I'll be making sure I locked in on that. But, yeah, I think, that 12 o'clock window, you may be able to actually go outside and ride your bike up on the boardwalk and enjoy a beautiful fall day here in the great state of New Jersey. So, yeah, but look, there's enough football to watch. There's nothing that I'm going to complain about. As Grace said yesterday, we got 55 days. That was day one, so we got 54 more to go, Grace.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are dubbing this an apple picking weekend. Next weekend and the one after that are probably the two biggest of the year so far. But I'm still excited. It doesn't matter who the teams are. I'm always going to get up for college football. There's nothing like starting college game day at 8 a.m. and just feeling the sweater weather outside, sitting on the couch and just starting your day. 12 straight hours of football, sometimes longer if you stay up for the Pac-12 or Pac-2 after dark. So I love it. It's not an apple-picking weekend for me. I'll watch any game.
I understand. And I think maybe we'll all be watching, Grace, this Missouri and Texas A&M game, which adds a little bit of intrigue outside of it being a game between two top 25 teams. So you have Missouri and their head coach, Eli Drinkwitz, who had to ban somebody from practice this past week because there's a family relation between their program and quarterback for the Texas A&M Aggies, Marcel Reed.
Interesting connection. Marcel's sister, Bria Reed, is our assistant director of on-campus recruiting here at the University of Missouri. So she's not allowed at practice this week. And didn't know that until about 3 weeks ago when he started at Florida and won. One of the staff members told me. So obviously happy for their family, and Bria does an excellent job here, and we're very fortunate for her to be on our staff here.
Okay, so you hear people laughing in the room when he says that. He kind of smirks. It's hard not to laugh when you hear it yourself. But the next day he went on the SEC teleconference and someone kind of wanted to get clarification. Were you serious about that? Like watching out for this guy's sister? And he doubled down. He said, yeah, she's only welcome to the first 5 periods of practice, which for those who go to college football practice, there's no scheme involved. It's typically like routes on air or like indie drills, basically nothing meaningful. But if you know anything about college football coaches, they are the most paranoid people in the world. So to me, this wasn't surprising. But then the internet's freaking out and Mizzou has to come out. They ended up tweeting a picture of Drink with Bria Reed and someone else who I don't know with the caption, "Football brings family together." So SEC, baby, it just means more.
Yeah, that is definitely a sign that is SEC football. I don't blame Coach at all though. Wins matter, and obviously this one is a big one. And unfortunately for Bria, she's gonna have to be barred from practice just for this one. She'll be back for next week. That one would assume. All right, I want to get into some more SEC games and maybe even a play for that game in just a moment. But first, I want to let you guys know that the VSiN Morning Line has a special offer. Right now, you can score 40% off our football season special when you use promo code VML. Sign up now and get full VSiN Pro access to everything we do through the Super Bowl, including daily best bets, 19 hours of live programming, proven betting systems, and exclusive betting slips. Save 40% off the football season special this week only when you sign up and use promo code VML. This offer expires on Monday, so don't you wait. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe and sign up now. That's VSiN.com/subscribe. All right, let's stick to the SEC here, Grace. I know we obviously just mentioned that matchup between Missouri and Texas A&M. If you have a play there, let us know. But then we also have Tennessee back in action off a bye week, taking on Arkansas. They're laying 13.5 with the over-under of 57.
Yeah, you know what? I actually like laying the big number with Tennessee. I have taken a look at the Vols first quarter -3.5 too, so I'm comfortable with either play there. Arkansas just has a habit of self-destructing between turning the ball over at a high rate. They're undisciplined on defense. They have breakdowns in coverage, lots of penalties. That's not going to work against a team like Tennessee that plays with pace. And especially when you're turning the ball over, that's not going to work well against this Tennessee defense. Arkansas has also been playing backup quarterbacks. Marcel Reed, who I guess isn't really a backup anymore. They played Auburn's Hank Brown and then Alan Bowman from OK State, who's been playing like a backup. I just think Tennessee coming off the bye will be really difficult to stop here. They'll probably win this game. I think the number should be 16. So we have an edge on the full game spread, but we're going back to the well with this first quarter one, too. They're 4-0 in the first quarter cover, so we're going to keep riding that one.
Speaking of Tennessee and their quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, we saw last week that Jalen Milroe really took a spike or an increase in terms of his Heisman likelihood after that performance against Georgia. What do you think this coming back to the fray for Nico might mean and his Heisman chances? Because obviously last week Milroe got all the attention.
Yeah, looking at the odds now, I'm seeing Iamaleava priced anywhere from 10-1 to 15-1. So now's the time to buy in because I think he's just going to keep getting better as the year goes on. And the guys with a real chance to win it, Milroe and Ward, there's not really any value left on them. So definitely take Nico this week.
All right, let's stick in the SEC with the team that lost and kind of a shocker if you haven't been paying attention to Kentucky over the past 3-4 weeks. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky at home in Oxford, and now they have a chance to get back in the win column. They're laying 9 at South Carolina, over-under sitting at 53. Grace, how you like this one?
Yeah, so the problem in the last game was Jackson Dart was not connecting on the deep ball. He was 1 for 7 on passes thrown over 20 air yards. The Rebs also didn't get the ground game going. But Kentucky has a really good front. South Carolina does as well, but South Carolina doesn't have an offense. And now they're facing Ole Miss's run defense, which is the best in the nation, holding opponents to 46 rush yards a game. That's 1.4 yards a carry. They got NFL players on that defensive line. It's an obvious bounce back spot for Ole Miss. And when you bounce back, you do it in the first quarter, not the fourth quarter. So we're going to back Ole Miss to cover, but we're going to do it in the first half. First half -4.5. Jackson Dart held a players only meeting Sunday. So I'm hoping that was kind of like his Tim Tebow moment, the famous speech. And Ole Miss bounces back here, but we're going to take him in the first half.
All right, love the first quarter, first half plays. Get it done and over with. Cash that ticket and move on to the next game. And speaking of which, let's move on to a game that's being played tonight. Syracuse in UNLV. UNLV, after all the controversy with the quarterback position, got a W last week against Fresno State. Back in action tonight, laying 6.5. How do you like this one?
So the way I look at this, UNLV still wants to run the ball. They threw just 17 passes in their last game, and you might look at that and say, well, wasn't that a blow-up? Yes. Or blowout? Yes, it was. But in the first half, 9 of their 24 plays, not including the drive before halftime, which was just a run out of clock, 9 of 24 first half plays were passing plays, which is on par with their run-pass ratio for the season. So if Syracuse is able to force them into a passing script, that could be difficult. Syracuse is also a different level of competition than anyone UNLV has faced this year. And the way they're different is they can keep up offensively. If you're going to back the underdog in this spot, you want it to be with a team that is high scoring. Cuse can score 35 here, which in this one will keep it close. Syracuse is also used to playing in a dome. This game is at Allegiant Field. Last week was an obvious spot where UNLV was supposed to win, so this could be a letdown spot here. So we're taking Syracuse plus 6.5.
one more game, and let's go to the Big Ten, where we saw some line movement here. I believe at one point, Grace, Washington was laying 3 in this national championship rematch against Michigan. That line is all the way down to 1.5. Why do you think it's moved that way? And what do you think happens in this national championship rematch game on Saturday night?
Yeah, well, 2 very different teams than played in January. I gave out Michigan +3 earlier in the week, So this is great that the line has moved in our favor, and good job everyone who tailed it on Tuesday. But basically, the Wolverines are the 3rd slowest team in the country. Huskies are also a slow team. It'll be a line of scrimmage game, and the Huskies are playing with 5 new starters on the offensive line who are serviceable, but it's just average at this point. Michigan, if one thing is held constant, it's their defensive line. Lots of NFL talent on that. They're going to run the ball, control the clock, and that's what will make this a close game.
Yeah, we'll continue to get into this college football slate with our next guest. That's Thomas Gable, sportsbook director at the Borgata. He'll also tell us what's happening with the NFC South futures odds and much more in the world of sports betting. That's coming up next, right here on the VSiN Morning Line.
In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, a sports oasis awaits. Stadium Swim, the ultimate outdoor amphitheater, built for the ultimate sports fan, with a colossal screen that brings the game closer than ever. Reserve a daybed, private cabana, or lounge in the center of it all. 6 pools to dive into as the game heats up. And the best part, there's never an off-season. Open 365 days a year. Stadium Swim, it's always spectator season.
VSiN's got you covered for the start of the season with our football special. For $175, you'll get access to everything VSiN has to offer. With VSiN Pro, you'll receive daily picks straight to your inbox, detailed analysis on every game, and exclusive data like our betting splits to help you become a sharper bettor. Get all of this for just $175 through the Super Bowl. Or try a monthly subscription and get your first 30 days for only $9.99. Don't miss out on this offer. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Good morning. Welcome back to the VSiN Morning Line. And we're reflecting on the fireworks that we saw in Thursday night football last night as the Falcons won in overtime against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And there was also some fireworks on the diamond as well, as the New York Mets had a comeback win over the Milwaukee Brewers and move ahead to take on the Philadelphia Phillies in the divisional series. So much sports to discuss, and here to break it down from a sports betting standpoint on the Progressive Guest Line is Thomas Gable, Sportsbook Director over at the Borgata. Let's get into Thursday Night Football, and thank you for joining us, TG. What were your impressions of what you saw from the Falcons last night, and how did the book make out?
Well, it was one of those games that kind of brings you back to what Kirk Cousins was doing 2 years ago in Minnesota when Minnesota was winning all those games that a lot of people didn't think they had any business winning. And a big win, obviously, for the Falcons there in overtime. From a betting perspective, the game was bet pretty evenly, close 2.5. It was a total of 44. Obviously, if you had the over there, no danger of not cashing that. But in play was where it better seemed to really take advantage and grab the Falcons at a plus price on the money line when they could, and so lost in play on the game. But obviously, from an NFC South perspective, where things sit right now, you have the Falcons. We have the Falcons priced plus 110 favorite to win the NFC South. Saints are plus 210, Tampa's plus 280, and the Panthers are 30-1. And with the Falcons, Saints, and Buccaneers, you really, I don't think there's much distinction between the three of those. I personally would not bet any of the three at this point. It's at those prices. It's just too much football left to be played, and those teams, I have them basically power rated almost identical at this point from a power ratings perspective. So it's going to be, I think this division is going to really come right down to the wire, and it should be a good one. Now, obviously, Atlanta was taking a lot of money preseason in the NFC South, and a lot of people thought they were going to be able to kind of run away with this division this year. I'm not quite sure that that's going to be the case. I really think that New Orleans and Tampa is going to remain there with them, and it's going to come right down to the wire in the NFC South.
So I agree, TG. I think those odds are too good. I actually think Carolina is going to control the South, because if you lose to Carolina in one of the two games you play them, you're probably going to lose the South. These teams, to me, they look like they're going to be 9-8, and you could flip the coin and see which one is. I think the Saints might be the best team. They should be 4-0. But to me, everything that went wrong for the Saints has gone right for the Falcons. So, sometimes it's better to be lucky than it is good. Let's start off with the Jets, Minnesota. That game seems to be settled at 2.5. I know you're a New York shop at the Borgata. But where's your line on this, and where's your liability?
Yeah, 2.5 is where we're sitting. That's where we opened it. The total, we opened 41.5, so that's ticked down 1 point. But right now, the Vikings, they've kind of become the darling of for bettors here, and believe it or not, we have more Vikings money currently. Now, I'm sure we will get Jets money over the weekend when a lot of our New York clientele come into town. But for right now, it's been Vikings money, and we're going to need the Jets. But I'm sure that's going to probably flip as we get closer to kickoff. 9:30 local kick here on Sunday morning. So it's always nice to have those early Sunday morning games. People are just kind of getting up from and getting their cup of coffee and wandering into the book and being able to sit down and watch football right away. That's a pretty cool thing. But I know there's been a lot of speculation with the Jets and Devontae Adams. We'll see obviously what happens with that, but I think this is a much bigger game for the Jets than it is the Vikings. The Vikings at this point, they've been my biggest mover in terms of power ratings. I've increased them 7 points from where I had them to start the season. So, and they deserve that, obviously, from not only how Sam Darnold's been playing, but how this defense has been playing. And we know how the Jets have looked. It's been very up and down, and we'll see if Aaron Rodgers can kind of right the ship here.
TG, I want to squeeze a baseball question in here. 3 of these underdogs have been getting a lot of attention probably for the last month or maybe a bit longer. But Royals, we saw them, at least on the series price, getting some money against the Yankees. Padres can compete with anyone, and Tigers are kind of a darling, might be a public favorite, but I think maybe the market has bottomed out a little bit on them. But I'm curious, who are your biggest liabilities in the MLB playoffs right now?
Well, for us, Grace, in the American League, we can start there. It's the Yankees. They are by far our biggest liability in the American League. We are big winners to the Royals or the Tigers. But the Yankees, as Michael knows, we take a ton of New York money, and Yankees are it's one of those teams that every year in the future market, they take a ton of money, and they have. So we're Yankees are our worst result in the American League. We're kind of neutral on the Guardians. Now, in terms of the series price, Guardians and Tigers, Guardians small favorite, $1.30 favorites in the series price. Yankees $2.10 favorite over the Royals. In the National League, it's a little bit different story because again, seeing the Mets advance last night. For us, I mean, it was good because we know this Phillies and Mets series is just going to have a huge right for us. Those are 2 big feeder markets for Atlantic City, New York, and Philadelphia. So getting those 2 teams together for this series, I think is going to be tremendous for us from a betting perspective. Phillies $1.85 favorite for the series. But, obviously these 2 teams, being in the National League East together, play each other a lot. They're very familiar with each other. But the 2-game series they played in London this summer was actually probably our most bet series of any during the summer for any 2 teams. So I'm pretty excited to see how this is going to go for us because I just think it's going to be monster handle for that series. And look, the Phillies, while the record post All-Star break, not nearly as good as it was pre-All-Star break, this is still a very, very good team at home. They have Citizens Bank Park is definitely a home field advantage for them. They have a tremendous home field record. And in the playoffs, it's a completely different atmosphere. It's insane there at Citizens Bank Park. I think from a pitching rotation for the Phillies, you obviously have Wheeler, Nola, and Sanchez will be the third. I think for the Phillies, if they're going to go, Ranger Suarez is still a question mark. This is a guy who, came out, started the season almost basically as a Cy Young contender. He was looking that good. And then again, post All-Star break, he's come back down to earth and has not looked sharp at all. So I think if they can get good quality starts out of the first 3 guys, Wheeler, Nola, and Sanchez, let's face it, had a great season. I think that this is priced correctly. I think the Phillies do have the advantage there. And this is a streaky offensive team as well. If they can get 3 guys who are hitting at the same time during the postseason, they're going to be very, very dangerous. So from a liability perspective, yeah, we have liability on the Phillies. We do have liability on the Mets in the futures market, but we also have some liability on the Padres as well. This Padres have been a kind of this curious team that everybody was kind of chasing the Dodgers. Could the Diamondbacks get there? Could the Padres get there throughout the season? Both came up short in the division, but the Padres, I think, are entering the playoffs looking tremendous and certainly should give the Dodgers a series. We have the Dodgers priced only $1.35 favorite in that series. So I think that's going to be a very competitive series between the 2 Southern California teams.
TG, we just have a minute left here, but let's get into the college football slate for this weekend. Where are you seeing the most action?
Well, obviously, it's a not as attractive slate as it was last weekend and what's to come. So you only really have one top 25 matchup out there. But, you know, you're getting action on some games. USC Minnesota has seen decent handle. USC currently laying 8 in that one. And while it's a huge spread, UCLA, Penn State, again, a little bit more towards the local market. Penn State laying 27.5. That game's actually taking pretty decent advanced handle as well.
TG, thank you for your time and enjoy all the action in this sports weekend.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys, coming up next, Michael Lombardi's best bet of the NFL weekend, and much, much more as we look at a new slate of football across the landscape. That's coming up next.
A new football season means a new lineup on VSiN. Start your day with sharp betting analysis on the VSiN Morning Line at 7 a.m. Eastern. Follow it up with a numbers game at 10.